Alright guys, this is Jesse, Iowa Audio Review. Today I'm going to look at this SMSL M100 high resolution USB DAC. Now this is a DAC I've actually had for a while. I got it a little while after I had the SMSL Sanskrit 10th. Just been using it off and on and kind of feeling it out here and there. And I got it used, so there's no unboxing or anything, but initially you get the USB DAC, of course, and then all they really include other than that is this, it's about a 3-foot USB to micro USB cable that allows you to connect it to a PC. And that's it. That's all you get. Oh, you get a high resolution sticker that's pretty much meaningless. It basically means it's at least CD quality, and like a little warranty card deal. So not much in the box from the get-go. And then it comes in blue, red, and black. I don't really care what color I had, and the used one I come across was blue, so that was fine. I actually was wanted blue anyway, but so let's take a closer look here. You get this nice glossy black front. As you can see, my light there in the reflection. I'm not sure if this is actually a glass or like a cell phone screen material, but it seems to be durable. It's thick. And then you can kind of see there's right there's a little digital screen. You'll see later when it turns on. Not much going on the sides. Bottom, little rubber feet. Oh, the front, I'm sure you could tell. This is the power button right here. Long press to turn on, long press to turn off, and then to switch in between inputs, you just press it like that. We'll look at that later once it's plugged in, and that will cycle between input 1, 2, and 3. And then nothing really going on in the back. And then on the back is where all the stuff is happening here. Let's see, SMSL M100 high resolution USB DAC, and then you got your optical or SPDIF in, your USB in, or it says right there in1 or input 1, and then a auxiliary power, which you do not need to use. If you're using USB off of your PC or your phone, I suppose, you don't need this. But to get the maximum performance or the best performance out of this DAC, you will have to use the auxiliary power. But so far in my testing, going with and without the auxiliary power, I can't really tell any sort of difference. I know in my SMSL SK10th DAC review, just because I didn't think it sounded better than my $1,000 Sony DVD player, everybody jumped to the conclusion that, well, I wasn't using auxiliary power. The DAC wasn't sounding its best. And I don't know, maybe for that DAC that's the case, but for this one, with and without the auxiliary power, realistically, blind test, you probably couldn't tell the difference, really. Maybe if you had a really good, highly resolving system, you might be able to tell the difference, or a really good headphones and headphone DAC, maybe. But for the majority of people, you probably won't be able to tell the difference. But if you have an extra USB cord and you just use a cell phone power brick that's at least 5 volts, it doesn't hurt to plug that in anyway. And then yellow is your input 3, which is your coaxial. And then your red and white here are your RCA or analog outputs. So you get optical, USB, and coaxial digital inputs, and analog right and left out. Now, the reason I like to keep these around is just because, if you want to run your computer to your stereo, basically it just gives you a lot of connectivity options between different devices and your stereo. If you want to hook your computer to your receiver or amplifier of sorts. Now, just a little thing, the SMSL, some of these other small DACs that come with the remote and stuff that you can control the volume, they can actually act as a preamp controlling your volume where this one cannot. This has no volume control, so you can't necessarily, or I wouldn't necessarily use this with, say, like a Crown or Behringer power amp, unless you want to use the gain controls on the front of the amp. I suppose you could do it that way, but this one cannot act as a preamp. It does not have any sort of volume. So input goes in, or signal goes in, signal goes out at 2 volts. There's no volume control. So, but if you're using a normal stereo receiver, home theater receiver, or integrated amplifier that has a volume control, it's not really an issue. I suppose if you're using this with a computer, you could use a computer as a volume control. But yeah. I just like having these around for connectivity. Hooking different things to different amplifiers, etc., etc. I'll probably even do a video with this one sometime in the near future, using something like this to possibly improve the quality of a CD player. If you have a CD player around the house that works really good, but it's 10, 15 years old now, and it has a digital output such as optical or coax, you could hook your CD player to this, and then it would use the DAC in this, before it goes to your amplifier. Because your CD player, if you use the analog, the red and white RCA's analog outputs, the CD player has already converted it to analog, and it's already used the DAC inside the CD player. Which, if it's an old CD player, if it's a cheaper CD player, the DAC's probably not going to be that good. The analog output stage and all the other things that go along with the DAC probably aren't going to be the best. So if the CD player has an optical or coaxial, it's just going to spit out the digital unprocessed signal. You can send it to this. You can use the DAC in here, which is probably far better, and then use this out to your amplifier, and possibly use something like this to improve the sound quality of a CD player. This one supposedly supports DSD. So you could also, if you have a super audio CD player or something, you could run it through this possibly as well. But let's just get to the specs here. We'll set him down. Oh, for a size comparison, this may help some people. This is what we call a cassette tape. For some of you youngsters watching this may have never seen one of these or handled one of these. I have this one because this is actually the first cassette tape I ever bought back in '91. And just as a size comparison, just to kind of show you, I know my hand is kind of a comparison, but do I have giant hands or do I have little hands? This is kind of more of a standard sized item. Cassettes are not very big, just to show really how small and compact this DAC is. Oh, I didn't mention the outside is like an anodized aluminum. It's very nice. Yeah, $80, very nice little DAC. But let's run over some of the specs. All right. We already talked about inputs. We already talked about outputs. The DAC chip in this is an AKM4452, which most people have no idea what that is or don't care. The amp output stage is a JRC2114. Again, most people have no idea why that matters or what that is or anything. But you can look up these things, and we'll just call them numbers and chips, and read about them, and they all kind of pertain to the performance level of this little DAC. Output level, which is the standard 2 volts RMS. THD plus N, which I believe stands for THD, total harmonic distortion plus noise, is 0.0005%. So super low. One of those specs, don't worry too much about THD when you're buying stuff like this. Even if it was 0.01, that would be just fine. It's great that it's 0.00005, but overkill really. Dynamic range, 114 dB. So that tells you right there, not a true 24-bit DAC, but that's okay because there's not a DAC on the planet or a system on the planet that can actually reproduce full 24-bit audio. Even at 114 dB, that'd be about 19 bits of dynamic range. So that's really good. That's still really good. That's 114 dB. That's enough to pretty much destroy your ears if you were to go that loud. Signal to noise ratio, 106 dB, still very good. I mean, for 80 bucks, very good. USB compatibility, Windows 7, 8, 8.1, 10, Mac OS X 10.6 and later. Linux doesn't specify Ubuntu, Mint, or anything. It just says Linux. And Android. Bit depth, USB is 1-bit to 32-bit. Coax and optical are 24-bit. Sampling rates on USB are 44.1 all the way up to 768 kilohertz. Ridiculous. I know some of these new DACs like this coming out are 32-bit, 384, and all the way up to 768. Total nonsense by me. You're not going to find really any music at 32-bit, these extreme sample rates. Heck, there's not even much true 24-bit music. I mean, there's a handful of 24-bit music catalogs out there, I guess, but not much. And a lot of the 24-bit audio out there is not even true 24-bit. It's either analog remasters that have been upsampled, etc., etc. But as far as audio that's been actually recorded digitally and mastered digitally, 24-bit the whole way, beginning to end, not much out there. So, and playing, hooking this to your computer and putting on a YouTube 24-bit FLAC audio playlist, that's not 24-bit audio. YouTube, even in 4K, with your video streaming set to the highest of 4K, the audio quality, I believe, is still through the Opus 251 codec, which is, I think, is a variable rate, and it's probably going to hover around somewhere around high quality MP3. So even if you have, CD quality FLAC files and stuff on your computer, going into your Windows audio or under this and changing this to 24-bit 192, and I guess assume you'd be upsampling, then it's still not 24-bit. That's just upsampled 24-bit. So DSD, you can do DSD 64, 128, 256, 512. Again, not really something most people need to concern themselves with. DSD is pretty much dead. And another thing with like the DSD and the high-res audio, just because something's DSD or 24-bit high-res does not mean it's necessarily going to sound better. I've gotten 24-bit tracks, like 2496 tracks, and that have been the remasters most of the time, and they sound different than the CD version, but they don't always sound better. Sometimes they're still compressed, the gain's cranked way up on them, they're just loud sometimes. A lot of it has to do with more with the recording quality and the mixing and mastering. It goes into it more so than the playback sampling rate, etc. So don't just assume because something's 24-bit or DSD that it's automatically going to sound better than, say, the CD version. And then for coaxial and optical, now down here it says 32 kilohertz sampling all the way up to 192. Power consumption is only 1.2 watts. Well, at least it says 1.2 W. But that's more or less... Oh, here... Input 1 is USB, input 2 is optical, input 3 is coax. What was the other deal with this? Oh, when we turn this on, there'll be an indicator light on the front. Red means standby, blue means DSD, and no light means you're in PCM, which almost all audio is PCM. So that's probably what most people will be using. And I think that's pretty much it. I mean, there's not a lot going on here. It's just a really nice little DAC. I think we'll go get it plugged in, and we're going to look at installing the USB software for it. Because this, I think the SMSL Sanskrit 10th would work without the USB software. From what I can tell, this one does not work. It will not show up in Windows without the software. Alright, I got the SMSL M100 plugged in down here. And auxiliary power, of course. And as you can see, the screen is blank. After it's on, just 3 dashes. And then we come back up here. You can see my taskbar here, there's nothing, doesn't show up. I believe even if we go into get this centered back up. If we go back into the sound settings, nope, just my ASUS sound card is all it's showing up. So now I'm at the SMSL driver download site, which I'll link in the description. We're going to scroll down to, scroll down here to the M100, the little cloud over here. Click download. I'm just going to do save for now. We'll save it. Okay, the file's done downloading, so come here, come back to the desktop. Here's the file right here. Now, before you extract it, normally you just open in file, extract files, or extract here, whatever you want to do. First, you want to go to properties, because I had this issue. I didn't do this, and for some reason, driver didn't work. So, but come in here. Sorry, we'll do it over again for you. Right click, properties, and then down here under security, you want to check unblock, apply, and then now we'll extract files here. Sure, yes to all. Here we go, right up here, M100. And we can open this now. There's the foobar setup manual, and then the M100 driver. Come in here, and I believe you can just click setup right here. Driver setup, yes. Welcome to the T-USB audio driver for XMOS. Yes, this is an XMOS USB driver. This DAC uses the XMOS software to connect to the PC. I believe it allows for higher sampling rates via USB and I think bit perfect audio or something. XMOS, I just believe, makes for better USB audio. I'm not going to get too into it. I can put a link in the description if you want to read about XMOS. But basically, it just makes for better USB audio. And we'll install. Installation complete. Finish. You must disconnect and reconnect your device. Do you want to exit the wizard and connect the device later? Sure. So we'll close all this now. I will turn off. I'm going to power down, long press and power down. Pull the power plug. Power plugs, I should say. We'll plug in the main USB, and then I'll plug in the auxiliary. And then long press to turn back on. And hopefully, now you have this little T or whatever logo down here. Oh, it's not detecting the device. Now what? Okay, there, it's connected. For some reason, the DAC must remember what input it was on, even after you unplug it from the wall and everything. I was using it in optical, which is input 2, so that's why it wasn't showing up in here. Once I switched it back to input 1, USB, poof, then it shows up in the TUSB audio control panel. And format in here, 2-channel, 32 bits. Yeah, there's a few options in here. Don't really need to mess with any of them. You can always then come down here, sound settings, control panel, and there's the XMOS. We're gonna, for some reason it's disabled, we're gonna enable that and go into these settings. Yeah, always, for listening to music anyway, I always keep all the enhancements disabled. Advanced, and here's all your bit rates. All the way from 16-bit 44.1 all the way up to 32-bit 192. So I'm not seeing any 32-bit 384 or 768, any of that. So, and just because I usually leave almost all my stuff just set to 1644.1, just because it's usually arguably good enough. If I have 24-bit, like a track or a file or something I know is 2496 or 192, then yeah, I'll change it. But setting this, say, to the max 32-bit 192, yeah, it's still going to play audio. But it doesn't make everything you play through it automatically 32-bit. It just upsamples it to that, which again doesn't necessarily make it that quality. So it's kind of pointless. I mean, if you switch it to this and you think it sounds different or better, whatever, then do that, but not really necessary. So we'll leave it on that, and yeah, that's pretty much it. It'll show here your version. Oh yeah, that's the output. I'm not exactly sure what everything in here does, but I don't think many people will be messing with it. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Getting it set up on a computer. You have to have the driver installed and everything, and then obviously this, and then you're good to go. So when it comes to, I've been using it with my Emotiva A300, and I used it with the Fosse Audio HDA1 hi-fi amp that I have been working on a review for. And so far, compared to like my Emotiva PT100 DAC and FX Audio DAC, the Sanskrit 10th DAC that I had, I'm not going to say it sounds better than any of those. It sounds really good. It's always circumstantial when it comes to this stuff, because it depends on what amplifier you're hooking it to, what speakers you're using. Your ears are different than everybody else's ears, your source music. So like a lot of things, I'm not going to say it's all these audiophile terms, because it might just sound that way with my amplifier, my speakers, my ears in my room. May not sound that way to you. So all I'm going to say is everything that I've put through it, it's been very clean, clear, really good, low end, good, tight, clean bass. The highs are clean and clear without being harsh or sterile. The mid-range has got, I guess you'd say, enough warmth to it. Everything seems, it's a very enjoyable sounding DAC, I guess. And as far as its sound quality, I have zero complaints at $80. It's actually kind of funny. A lot of these smaller $80, $100, $120 DACs, the specs they're putting out are far better than most amplifiers that people have. So, like this had a signal to noise ratio of 114 dB. An amplifier with a THD of 0.0005 and a signal to noise ratio of 114 dB, or not signal to noise, sorry, dynamic range of 114 dB, and even the signal to noise of 106, an amplifier with those kind of specs would be very expensive. So if you're a specs number kind of guy, most amplifiers are going to actually kind of bottleneck this thing, but honestly, we don't really listen to numbers. Numbers aren't everything. Just because it's got high numbers and really good specs doesn't automatically mean it's going to sound amazing. But I always think it's kind of funny. We can get these $100 DACs now that, in a numbers perspective, highly outperform most of the amplifiers that we use. Unless you got plenty of money to buy a really, really good amplifier and really, really good speakers. Realistically, really good equipment all the way through to really resolve the quality of even a $100 DAC nowadays. So, but yeah, I think that's it. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments. We'll try to help you out if you're having any issues with it or you want to know anything else about it. But all right, guys, see you later.